DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health. At Merck Animal Health, we're shaping the future of animal health with pioneering science, connected technology, and insights-driven solutions to bring our customers an unparalleled portfolio of choices to improve cattle care and operational efficiency. We support you and your legacy by helping you meet the challenges of today with the innovations of tomorrow.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. We're going to have a great show today. We have Dr. Christine Navarre with us. We're going to talk about beef quality assurance. It's a foundational part of everybody's beef operation. We're here at LSU. It's going to be a great show.
They're here, they're hungry, and they can't be stopped with ivermectin. Choose Safeguard when you deworm your cattle to take out resistant parasites like brown stomach worm, Cooperia, Nematodirus, and others. With Safeguard's efficacy, you can kill more resistant worms in your cattle, so you don't leave potential on the table. Consult your veterinarian for the diagnosis and treatment of parasitism. Then bite back at safeguardworks.com.
When the ones who have your heart need your help, count on us for everything they deserve, delivered fast. We'll work hard for you so you can work hard for your dreams.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson, and I'm here with a friend and colleague, Dr. Christine Navarre, and she is the extension veterinarian for the LSU Ag Center, and she's a professor of animal science here at Louisiana State University. And we're down here in Baton Rouge. My first trip down.
Welcome.
It is so cool. The campus is beautiful. The people are beautiful. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah. And if you haven't met Dr. Navarre, or haven't seen one of her presentations, and you do see that she's in the area somewhere in the United States, this is probably one of my favorite veterinarians, one of the most accomplished veterinarians, and just such a wealth of information. So this is kind of like getting to interview Michael Jordan for me.
No.
It's great. So we're going to talk about beef quality assurance today.
Yeah.
Something that you've spent a lot of time with, something you work with producers on a day-to-day basis with, and so let's just, what is it?
Yeah, very passionate. So beef quality assurance is a producer-driven program. It started back probably almost 40 years ago now with some of our colleagues and some of the feed yards, and they were recognizing that we just had too many injection site lesions, we had too many residues, and it all started, trying to decrease those. And then over the years, because of research, we know that many things impact the safety and the quality of beef. And so the program has really grown into covering a lot of the management practices. And it's really a set of best management tools that, they're just guiding principles that, nothing is prescriptive, but we can look at those and kind of a check off and say, are we really paying attention to herd health? Are we really paying attention to nutrition? All the things that make us more profitable, but also make the beef safer and better eating quality. So.
Yeah, we walk that fine line of here's this living, breathing animal that we have to take care of. There's this business that we're running.
Yes.
And yet it's someone's food.
It is, yeah.
And so that
several different
of,
industries. So there's the beef industry, there's the cattle industry, and the two, are married. And I think BQA kind of brings that together.
Yeah. And it does. It's, when you think of quality assurance, QA, QC, it's a QA, QC of what our product going to that consumer.
Yes, absolutely.
Is going to be.
That's at the end of the day, that's what we're going for. But we also have to keep cattle producers in business, or there's no product. So we have to keep both of those in mind.
Key term to sustainability is profitability.
Yes, absolutely. Economic profitability is sustainability. Yeah. Otherwise, the rest doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a hobby. So when we jump into BQA, what are some of the things that you're doing to support BQA and how do people get certified?
Yeah, so we have in-person trainings throughout the state, and we have a Master Cattleman program as part of our extension programs and some others. And so one of our classes in Master Cattleman is BQA. So we get a lot of producers that come to that. And then we will have other just standalone BQA trainings. So that's those are in-person trainings. Sometimes those are in a classroom. Sometimes we really like to do those shoot sides so that we can actually have some hands-on things. We do some youth training, which is always really fun. And then there is an online, you can get certified online, and that's free. At bqa.org. There's a really good resources there. We also have online at the national office. They have a new continuing education. So if you've been certified before and you need to get recertified, you can actually take some continuing education models that go into a little bit. So one of them's herd health, and there's a cattle handling, and so there's a couple of those, and they're going to be rolling out more. So that gives you a little bit others. There's also other programs. So there's a transportation module that I think is really, really great, and that goes from commercial transporters, and then there's one for just basic farmers and ranchers to do. So yeah.
Perfect. Lots of opportunities. If you're not BQA certified, you need to be. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Dr. Christine Navarre.
Hello there, Dr. Nick Wagner, Professional Services Veterinarian with Neogen, and today I wanted to talk about a critical component of a comprehensive biosecurity program, and that's the cleaning and disinfecting process. The cleaning and disinfecting process is important to eliminate any infectious agents. It comes down to first removing all organic and inorganic material. Now, on a lot of these operations, dust can be a component of that, so you want to be careful in that initial step that you're not doing too much to aerosolize pathogens. The second step of that is using a detergent to be able to clean that surface. And when you look at detergents or soaps, alkaline detergents remove fats, oils, and biological materials, whereas acidic detergents are better for more mineral scale type residues. Then you need to do a thorough rinse after your detergent is applied to help remove remaining soils. You need to allow that surface to dry before you disinfect it, because it's important that you get the right concentration of disinfectant and you apply it at the right rate so that you have the proper contact time as well. But really what the C&D process comes down to, it's the appropriate preparation of that surface to prepare it for disinfection, because in order for disinfection to be effective, the disinfectant has to come in contact with the pathogens of concern.
Thanks for watching Cattle Intel by Neogen.
Are you a cattle feeder looking to manage for a stronger and more profitable set of cattle? Look no further than Igenity Feeder. Igenity Feeder utilizes DNA to gain insight into your cattle's genomic potential, with the information to predict performance, quality, and economic endpoints for cattle feeders. Animals are scored and ranked in a simple format, driving more precise and accurate management decisions. Igenity Feeder gives you the power to predict days on feed, manage variability within lots, characterize carcass performance, and focus on metrics important to you and your operation. With the data provided, you will identify superior animals earlier and maintain high operational efficiency. Maximize your profit and optimize performance with Igenity Feeder.
When the ones who have your heart need your help, count on us for everything they deserve, delivered fast. We'll work hard for you so you can work hard for your dreams.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Christine Navarre. She is a professor of animal science. She is the extension veterinarian for the LSU Ag Center here at Louisiana State University. We're shooting it on campus today, and just great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for being here. Yeah, glad to have you.
We're talking BQA.
Yeah.
And let's just kind of cue up the overall stress, cattle stress and cattle stress relief type platform.
Yeah, so when you look at a lot of the areas that we cover in BQA, I kind of look at it in the way I like to deal with herd health programs in general for cattle producers is, what are all the stressors that cattle can become, get under? And we know that stress is not good for those animals, but we can't eliminate stress. So we have to wean cattle, we have to castrate, we have to dehorn. But how do we do all of those things to make that as little stress as possible? Nutrition stress is a big one that we all deal with. If cattle aren't fed properly, there is no immune system. So lots of diseases take over. And again, we know when we have to treat animals, more because we have more diseases, then we have more risk of residues, we have more risk of injection site lesions, things like that. And so we want to just minimize stress as much as possible.
Yeah, because I can always remember Upson saying there's 2 reasons why animals get stress: an overwhelming dose of a pathogen or a stressed immune system.
Yes.
And there's a lot of times we can't deal with one, but there's one we can deal with every day, right?
Correct. So, nutritional management, we know a lot about fetal programming now, that from the day that calf is conceived all the way through birth really sets that calf up for its immune system. It also sets up our quality, because if we've got growth and marbling genetics, but we don't feed the cow that's incubating that calf, we know that those outcomes are not going to be what we want. So nutrition is really huge for the immune system, and that's, just basics: protein, energy, minerals, macrominerals, microminerals, water. Water consumption is huge, especially here in the South. Trying to make sure that these cattle are going to drink a lot of water. And then, a lot of our management procedures. So castration, dehorning, looking at pain management. So we've got a lot of producers that are picking that up. And, at first they might say, oh, that's going to slow me down. But then they try it and they're like, wow, the calves don't jump around as much when I give them a block, and it actually speeds us up. So those are the things that we talk about a lot in the
And they'll
big
kick
QA
the
program.
knife out of my hand.
They don't kick the knife out of your hand or kick your face or, yeah. So those are really important, low stress weaning techniques. We've got to wean calves, but finding ways to do that low stress is really important.
Yeah. And so as you teach these, and you said that you do them both in the classroom and shoot side, I have a feeling there's demonstrations or things that you'll do with different groups.
Yeah, so the shoot side is really nice because we can, show how to give injections, and where to give injections, and how proper restraint's really important. Cattle handling, if a huge stressor is how we handle those cattle to get to the chute. And, I joke that, if you're running cattle a mile with Catahoula dogs and then you're gonna put them in a chute and give them a vaccine, you might want to think about that, because I'm not sure that's doing you any good, because those cattle are coming in so stressed. So thinking about our cattle handling methods is another, really big stressor that we have to think about.
I think that as we head back to commercial, you're not just decreasing the stress of the cattle, you're decreasing your own stress, and so everybody wins when we do it the right ways. This is just a great show. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more on beef quality assurance with Dr. Christine Navarre.
From the veterinary standpoint of it, we all know that stress is a precursor to a lot of other underlying diseases. The cells in the animal's body at different points can react differently to the vaccinations or whatever we're giving them. So if we can create an animal that is less stressed, 1 pound will pay for the whole cost of the therapies right now.
One animal has this huge impact on your operation.
BVDV is one of the most costly bovine diseases, with losses of $15 to $88 per head.
The virus will actually cross the placenta and get into the fetus. As it's developing, its immune system will recognize that virus as it's supposed to be here. And so then that's where our persistently infected animals come from. They're going to shed that virus their entire life, and then it's going to impact your operation.
It is important to work with your local veterinarian and partner with IDEXX for the best solution for your operation.
In the livestock industry, castration is a common practice to ensure proper herd management. All methods are painful, regardless of the age of the animal. At Solvit, we could not ignore the clear industry need for better castration solutions. So we developed LidoBand, a novel lidocaine-impregnated elastrator, addressing the pain associated with band castration. It provides local anesthesia throughout the castration process. LidoBand, a small device that can make a big difference.
Valley Vet Supply sees the hard work and effort of you and your animals to achieve your goal of being a champion. And we're here to help along the way. To the cowboys and cowgirls, to the dreamers, we see you.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson, and I'm here with Dr. Christine Navarre. She's a professor here in the Animal Science Department at LSU. She's also the extension veterinarian for the LSU Ag Center. Big job all across the state, and really she's all across our country. There isn't a veterinary board or leadership position that she hasn't served our profession, and just very thankful for all your hard work. We're talking beef quality assurance, and kind of one of the core areas has always been injection sites.
Yeah. So giving those injections, properly, but also, safe for people. So I know when this, program first started, there was the two-handed technique was, the way to give injections. And now I'm glad that we can use a one-handed technique, because in some facilities that's a little bit safer for the people.
Yep.
When you don't have two hands in that chute and your face is closer. So, giving all those injections in the neck, trying to go sub-Q, really important if you can. Don't put your vaccines on top of each other. We want to give them a chance to work. Also, a lot of times we have to use both sides of the neck. If we're using an injectable dewormer, other products, we, especially on smaller animals, calves, we run out of, if you're going to space things 4 inches apart, you run out of space pretty quick. The other thing I talk about is, the lymph nodes that drain that neck area are right there on the front of the shoulder. So back to cattle handling, you're making sure that, those calves are coming into the chute as calmly as possible and not hitting that head gate, so you're not like making those lymph nodes bruised that are then going to be the place that vaccine starts to build a response.
Well, you got to wake them up.
You got to wake them up. Yeah, we don't want to wake them up that much. They're awake. I promise you, they're awake.
Don't do this, because you do damage them.
Yeah, you do damage them. So again, back to low stress cattle handling, it all starts to come together. So, nothing in the back end. There's only one product, a hormone product, that's approved for the tail head, but, we just don't know if some of these products work back there. So, yeah.
Well, and there is, if you're doing 4 inches apart and you're using both sides of the neck, there's no need to put some of the products in the other spots, because it's just, we've gone from the 5cc IM clostridial vaccines. Now we have everything sub-Q for the most part. And we're really focused on if you cause a lesion at branding, it's there at slaughter
forever. Yeah. And bruising from, using, if you put down the hot shot, but you picked up a sorting stick and you're whacking them all on the back, even cows, the cull cows, people think they're going to turn into ground beef, and a lot of them go to steaks. And so, that bruise might heal, but it might turn into a tough piece of steak, which is not what we want.
Or trimmed, and then here we go.
Which is a lot of money that we lose from trim.
So when we're talking about injection sites, I wince a little bit when I bring this up, but what about darts?
Yeah, darts are an issue, because we're finding more darts actually buried at slaughter, which is not a good thing. And if you look at some of the research in a very controlled situation, so the darts are, same distance, calf in a chute, same shooter, 30% of those darts fail, even in a very controlled, research project. So how many of those darts that you're actually shooting out in the pasture are failing? And we also need to give those darts in the neck. And how hard is it to get a calf to show you broadside? They're either going to be looking at you or they're going away from you. So we don't want to give those darts in the back end for sure, because that's just going backwards. And when we don't know if they're going sub-Q, we have the risk for residues. So I would say it is a tool, but we need to use it very, very judiciously.
Perfect. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more from Dr. Christine Navarre here at Louisiana State University.
When it comes to treating BRD, you want a product that you can count on to get the job done at an affordable price. Macrocin by Bimeda delivers on both. A straight shooting, no BS tulathromycin that does what it's supposed to do. End of story. You don't need to take our word for it though. Go to macrocin.com for customer testimonials and head-to-head trial results. For your cattle and your bottom line, choose Macrocin.
Time is money on the farm, and your cows are less productive when they're stressed. The Alertus on-farm test from IDEX allows you to quickly test cowside and identify open or pregnant cows within minutes on your schedule in the parlor, barn, or chute. It's more efficient for your farm, very simple to use, and puts you in control. With minimal training and reliable, fast results, sample-based pregnancy testing is better for beef and dairy producers. Learn more at idex.com/DocTalk.
When you spot BRD in your cattle, that's your golden opportunity to target infection and its associated fever with a single dose of Resflor Gold, the industry standard dual therapy. To learn more, talk to your Merck Animal Health rep or your vet and see label at resflorgold.com. Animals intended for human consumption must not be slaughtered within 38 days of treatment. This product is not approved for use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, including dry dairy cows.
When the ones who have your heart need your help, count on us for everything they deserve, delivered fast. We'll work hard for you so you can work hard for your dreams.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Christine Navarre. She is the Extension Veterinarian for the LSU Ag Center, and she is a professor of animal science here at Louisiana State University. Tremendous resource at all levels of our profession and our beef industry. And today we're talking about beef quality assurance. And I guess, as we kind of set this up for people watching, they need to get involved with BQ. If you own cows and you're involved in the beef industry, this is the cornerstone of education of what we do.
Yeah, I mean, it's producer driven. There's veterinarians involved, but it's not, prescriptive. We're not, telling you what to do, but it's just a really good way to check, am I hitting all the areas that I need to hit? And then you can do it in a way that works for each individual ranch.
Yep. So you were mentioning that there are lots of resources that we can use. So what are some of those?
Yeah, so bqa.org, there's a brand new beef quality assurance manual, and then this summer they'll be releasing a field manual, which is kind of a scaled down version that people can use. There are assessment tools. So there's a feedlot assessment tool, which in some cases being used as audit. There's a cow-calf assessment tool. So it's not really involved. It's just a good checklist to say, am I hitting, environmental quality, worker safety, herd health? Am I giving my injections in the right place? All those things, making sure, we're not overlooking something that's important. There's also in the cow-calf assessment tool, all of them, but that's what I work with mostly. There's a cattle handling score sheet, which I think is a really good way to, you score yourself and then you see where you are, and there's some metrics in there. And I think the metrics are really, definitely achievable. And we need to look at that.
I have never done one of these assessments for a feedlot that it didn't improve their operation, both from a efficiency standpoint, but also profitability.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's busy, and sometimes you're living day to day, and I think BQA makes you sit down and go, okay, what is the bigger picture, and where do I need to go long term? And it kind of gets us out of that day by day, hour by hour. I got to feed cows. I got to put out hay. I've got to check water troughs, and that can take up a lot of our energy. And this is a great way to just kind of sit back and go, where am I and where do I need to be?
Yeah, it's like that thing when you just keep walking around that, pile of whatever out in your backyard. And your neighbor comes over and goes, why don't you move that?
Yeah, exactly.
It just became a habit.
Yeah, and it may give you some ideas on how to do things differently and better and make you more productive.
So when you do the trainings, about how long are the trainings? How long do they last?
It depends on if we're, outdoors or in the classroom. My in-person training takes about 2 hours because there's a lot of material to cover. And, if we have a meal in there, which we usually do, then, might go 2.5, 3 hours. But, shoot side, we can, it's about the same amount of time. Again, there's a lot to cover. So it's not just, a 15-minute cattlemen's meeting catch up. It's an actual certification program. So we need to cover a lot of things.
Any parting last words of advice here for folks in BQA?
I would just say if you haven't been certified lately, please get certified. The program is continuously improving and getting better all the time. Again, it's producer driven, and so producers, veterinarians, we all need to be BQA certified so we're on the same page.
Great. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching DocTalk. Remember, if you want to find us on the web, you can find us at www.doctalktv.com. Always work with your local practitioner. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Christine Navarre, and we'll see you down the road.
At Merck Animal Health, we support you and your legacy by helping you meet the challenges of today with the innovations of tomorrow.
This fall, Rodrigo with Therapies came to me and wanted me to try this product. Since then, our medicine bills went to nothing. This is not an antibiotic. It makes your cattle keep hydrated. It makes your antibiotics and your drugs work like they should. We went from doctoring 40% of them last November to almost nothing. This is not a paid advertisement. This is good stuff. If you want to make some money, buy you some little calves, use this Therapies and save a lot. It is the best product I've ever used.